All right, I'm going to take another look at gold. I think we're about ready for at least another bounce. I'm not convinced at this point, anyway, that we're ready to start an intermediate advance, and I'll show you what we're going to have to do in order to change my mind on that. But I think we've probably, I warned last week that this past week was an options expiration. They were going to attack gold. For options expiration happens pretty much every month. So this week, you could just kind of take that to the bank that gold was going to be suppressed heavily this week. And I also kind of figured that we were probably going to undercut this November intermediate cycle low this week, which we did Friday morning. Um, However, we're severely oversold, um, and I think it's time for a bounce. Now, as you can see, and I've pointed this out before, this was the advancing phase of an intermediate cycle. You can see that by the pattern of higher highs and higher lows. It's kind of stair stepping up. And that changed at this point after this huge attack. And now we are making lower lows and lower highs. So we're going to have to change that pattern before I'm going to be convinced that maybe this is just a really short intermediate cycle, which is not impossible, but I would say probably unlikely. Now we've got this major resistance zone here at about 1850. Let's see if I can get that in. Okay, so you can see we bounced off this multiple times, and then when this broke down, we had that bloodbath phase as that support broke down into the intermediate bottom. We get our intermediate bottom, and then we start the advancing phase of the intermediate cycle. It's just stair stepping up. Now, as I said, we're stair stepping down, so there's no doubt that we're in the declining phase of the intermediate cycle. Normally, this is week 11, I believe. Normally, these last 18 weeks on the short side, 22 to 25 weeks is normal. So we should probably have another, 8 to 10 more weeks to go before we get a final bottom. But what would change my mind is if gold was to rally out of this, what I think is probably a short-term bottom, either on Friday on the options expiration or early next week. I'm pretty convinced that we're going to get a bounce. If that bounce can come up here and make a higher high, and especially if it could close above 1850, then I might be willing to view this as a short intermediate cycle that bottomed with only 2 daily cycles embedded within it. And that's not impossible. This was a really long cycle. Usually a short cycle will follow a long cycle, except in this particular case, there was a short cycle preceding it. Let me see if I can widen the chart here a bit. All right. So this particular intermediate cycle here was, from here to here was pretty short. I think this was only 18 weeks. So that kind of balances out this really long cycle by itself. But again, like I'll say, it's not completely out of the question that we could just get a very short 2 daily cycles and we get a bottom with this marginal undercut. I mean, this thing's basically artificial to begin with. We've seen, these multiple attacks to keep gold suppressed. So I'm not going to completely rule out the possibility that we could have a short 2 daily cycle, intermediate cycle that only runs 11 weeks, and then we get another intermediate advancing cycle. And here's what I think has the potential anyway to break that manipulation of the metals and possibly create this short cycle. and that is silver. So silver typically, um, follows gold and magnifies the moves, and that is just not happening. Um, After this intermediate bottom, which in silver did not make a lower low, silver has been consistently making higher highs and higher lows. So there's nothing even in this silver chart that would suggest to me that the intermediate cycle has topped, which is very different than gold. So silver is decoupling from gold, and I think part of that is I think we are starting to get shortages in the physical market in silver, and that threatens to break the manipulation that's trying to keep the metals suppressed. And if silver can come up and break out of this consolidation box, let's just call it $30 here. We kind of poked a little above it there, came up a little bit short here, but if silver was to rally and break out above this $30, then I don't think the banking cartel is going to be able to hold the manipulation in the gold market or in the mining shares. I think it'll break, and when it does, I think it'll produce an explosive and very aggressive rally in that sector. So this is what I'm watching here is silver. If silver can uh, get a strong impulsive rally and break above $30, then I think the manipulation of the gold market is hopeless at that point, and I think the bullion banks are going to be stuck in another short squeeze and lose billions and billions of dollars. So this is what I'm watching now. I'm expecting some kind of a short-term rally in the metals. I want to see what happens to silver during that short-term rally, and whether or not we can get a very strong impulsive move back above $30. If it is, then I'm going to say, that is your signal. Time to get in, buy heavily, and then hang on for several months as the rally should be very aggressive as it breaks the manipulation that's been holding the metals down for months now.